When you first sent me all this stuff about world religions, I got to admit, it was a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
When I actually dove in, I was hooked. I mean, every page is like a crash course in a whole new way of seeing the world.
It really is fascinating how religion offers this unique window into humanity. Our history, our values, our deepest fears and hopes.
For sure. And get this, over 84% of the world identifies with some kind of faith.
Wow, that's a huge chunk of humanity.
It is. So to wrap our heads around it all, we're tackling the top 10 biggest religions.
Okay, I like it.
We'll start with a few that might surprise you, then work our way up to the heavy hitters.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's kick things off with a faith that was new to me, Chaotism. It's only been around for about 100 years, but it's already got millions of followers, mostly in Vietnam.
Yeah, Chaotism is really interesting. It's like a fusion of all these different traditions. You've got Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, even Catholicism all mixed in.
Seriously?
Yeah, and they've even got saints from all these different cultures and eras.
Like, who are we talking about here?
Well, get this. One of their most revered saints is Victor Hugo.
Victor Hugo, the Les Miserables guy.
The one and only. And it kind of gets at this core idea in Chaotism that all religions are ultimately reaching for the same truth. So by including someone like Victor Hugo, they're saying that wisdom and divine inspiration can come from anywhere.
Huh. That's a pretty open-minded way of looking at things.
It really is. And their symbol, the divine eye, represents that unifying force in the universe. It's this reminder that we're all interconnected, even with our differences.
It makes you think about the power of just blending beliefs, especially in today's world where everyone's constantly interacting with different cultures and backgrounds.
Absolutely. Chaotism really highlights how we can find common ground and build bridges, even when it comes to something as personal as religion.
Okay. Next stop, we're heading east to explore a faith that's totally woven into Japanese culture.
Shinto. Yeah, Shinto's a tricky one to pin down. It's often described more as a way of life than a rigid religion. Well, there's no single founder or fixed set of beliefs. It's all about the veneration of kami, which are spirits that are believed to exist all throughout nature.
So instead of worshiping one god, they're worshiping everything.
You could say that. Trees, mountains, rivers, even certain animals or natural forces, they can all be seen as manifestations of the divine in Shinto. It's this deep reverence for the natural world that really defines the faith.
That explains why Japan has like a zillion shrines.
Tens of thousands, actually. Each one is dedicated to a specific kami.
And these shrines, are they just for worship or is there more to it?
They're definitely places of worship, but they're also seen as these sacred spaces where people can connect with the spiritual energy of the kami and find a sense of peace and harmony.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's something I've always wondered about. A lot of Japanese people don't actually call themselves Shinto, even if they participate in Shinto rituals.
You're right, and it really gets at this complex relationship between cultural practices and personal beliefs. In Japan, Shinto is so deeply ingrained in the culture that for a lot of people, it's less about dogma and more about honoring traditions, connecting with their heritage, and feeling a sense of belonging.
It's like how people will celebrate Christmas even if they aren't religious. It's more about the shared experience and those cultural touchstones.
Exactly. And Shinto reminds us that faith can express itself in so many ways, from formal religious structures to those everyday rituals that give our lives meaning.
All right, time to dive into a faith known for its extreme nonviolence. Jainism. Even the most dedicated vegans might be surprised by some of these practices.
Oh yeah, Jainism is in a league of its own when it comes to ahimsa, the principle of nonviolence. They take it to a whole new level.
Seriously? I read that some Jains even wear masks to avoid accidentally inhaling insects.
It's true. They're incredibly careful not to harm any living creature. They even sweep the ground in front of them as they walk.
Wow, talk about dedication.
And it goes beyond just physical harm. They believe in minimizing harm in everything they do, their thoughts, their words, their actions. It's about cultivating this deep sense of compassion for every living being.
I guess when you believe in reincarnation, it makes sense. You never know, you could come back as an ant in your next life.
Exactly. And their founder, Mahavira, he really embodied this commitment to nonviolence.
Didn't he fast for like 12 years?
He did. It's a testament to their belief in self-discipline and the pursuit of liberation.
So how does fasting for over a decade lead to liberation?
Well, Jains believe that every action, even accidentally stepping on a bug, creates karma, which keeps us trapped in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
So by avoiding harm as much as possible, They're breaking free from that cycle.
Exactly. The ultimate goal in Jainism is to achieve moksha liberation from that cycle of suffering and rebirth.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, this idea that even the smallest actions can have these huge ripple effects that we might not even be aware of.
It really does make you consider the interconnectedness of all things, and how even small acts of kindness, or conversely, small acts of harm, can have a big impact.
For sure. Cool, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a faith that's relatively new on the scene but growing super fast, the Baha'i faith.
Yeah, the Baha'i faith is fascinating because it popped up during this time of intense social and political turmoil in 19th century Persia. And their message of unity and hope really resonated with people.
And it seems like that message is still resonating today. They have millions of followers all over the world. What do you think is driving that growth?
I think it's their focus on these core principles that feel incredibly relevant right now. The oneness of humanity, equality between women and men, the harmony of science and religion, eliminating all forms of prejudice. It really speaks to this deep desire for peace, justice, and understanding in the world.
It's like they're taking the best parts of different religions and weaving them together into this tapestry of unity and compassion.
That's a great way to put it. They believe that all religions are connected, each one revealing a different aspect of the same divine truth.
And they're not just talking the talk. The Baha'i are known for actually walking the walk. They're involved in all sorts of social justice movements all around the globe, from promoting literacy and education to advocating for the rights of marginalized communities.
Yeah, they believe that faith without action is meaningless. It's about taking what you believe and using it to make the world a better place.
Speaking of faiths with deep roots and a commitment to social justice, let's talk about Judaism. It's a religion that's faced its fair share of challenges throughout history, but has come out of it with this incredibly rich culture and a strong sense of identity.
Yeah, Judaism is more than just a religion. It's a culture, an ethnicity, a whole way of life that's been formed by thousands of years of history, tradition, and resilience.
And it all goes back to that covenant between God and Abraham, right? That's kind of the foundational story in Judaism.
Exactly. That covenant established this unique relationship between the Jewish people and God based on this idea of mutual responsibility. God promised to protect and bless Abraham's descendants, and in return, they were to follow God's laws and teachings.
And those teachings are laid out in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible.
Yep, the Torah is like their sacred rule book. It lays out the foundation of Jewish law ethics and spirituality. It's got stories, laws, poetry, wisdom, all this stuff that has guided the Jewish people for centuries.
And those stories are kept alive through rituals and traditions that have been passed down through generations, things like Passover and Hanukkah.
Exactly. These festivals aren't just about remembering the past. They help Jewish people connect with their heritage, strengthen their identity, and find meaning in the present moment.
It shows how faith isn't just about what you believe. It's also about those shared stories, rituals, and traditions that tie a community together across time and space.
It is. And in the case of Judaism, those traditions have helped them to survive centuries of persecution and displacement.
It's a testament to their strength and resilience. Speaking of resilience, our next religion is known for its emphasis on service and social justice, Sikhism. And it all began with this guy named Guru Nanak back in 15th century India, who had a pretty radical idea.
Guru Nanak was way ahead of his time. He challenged the rigid social hierarchy, preaching a message of equality, compassion, and devotion to one God.
He basically said, why are we dividing ourselves based on caste or creed? We're all children of the same divine light. It's a powerful message.
It really is. He rejected the caste system, promoted equality between men and women, and stressed the importance of experiencing the divine directly instead of getting caught up in empty rituals or dogma.
And that emphasis on direct experience shows up in their concept of the Gurdwara. It's more than just a temple, right?
Right. Gurdwaras are like lively community centers that welcome people of all faiths. They offer free meals through the langar, a tradition that really embodies their commitment to serving others.
So it's like a big open house potluck where everyone's welcome.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone has that divine spark and creating a space where people can connect, share a meal, and support one another.
Okay, we got to talk about the 5Ks.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, when I first heard about the kirpan, this ceremonial dagger, I was a bit taken aback.
It's totally understandable to have questions about it, especially since it's often misunderstood. But the kirpan isn't meant to be a weapon of aggression. It symbolizes their duty to defend the weak and fight for justice.
So it's more about having that warrior spirit, but not in a violent way.
Yeah,
It's about standing up for what's right or protecting the vulnerable.
you got it. And for Sikhs, that commitment to justice is a fundamental part of their faith. It's about living a life of courage, integrity, and service to others.
It's like their faith is a call to action, a reminder that we all have a responsibility to create a more just and compassionate world.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? This idea that our faith should push us to be better, kinder people. And it leads us right into another faith that's all about peace and compassion.
Buddhism. It's amazing how Buddhism has been around for over 2,500 years, and it's still so relevant today. I mean, look at how popular meditation apps are. People are really drawn to its teachings on mindfulness and inner peace.
It speaks to the universality of its message. You see, Buddhism isn't about worshiping a god, it's about following a path to enlightenment, and that path is open to anyone, regardless of their background.
And that path starts by recognizing that suffering is a part of life. Not exactly a cheery thought, but I guess you got to face the problem before you can fix it, right?
Right. And Buddhism offers a way out of suffering through understanding and practice. The Four Noble Truths are a good place to start. The Buddha himself called them the heart of his teachings.
Okay, so remind me, what are the Four Noble Truths again?
Well, the first noble truth is that suffering exists. We all experience it in different ways. Physical pain, emotional distress, dissatisfaction, you name it.
Okay, that's fair to say.
The second noble truth is that there's a cause to that suffering. Usually it comes down to our attachments and desires.
So we're basically creating our own suffering by clinging to things that won't last or chasing after things that won't make us truly happy.
That's the gist of it. The third noble truth is that suffering can actually end and that liberation is possible.
Okay, that's helpful.
And the fourth noble truth tells us how to get there. It's the Eightfold Path.
Right, the Eightfold Path. It's all about living a more mindful and compassionate life.
Exactly. It's like a roadmap to developing wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. And through practices like meditation, we can train our minds to be more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to find that inner peace and well-being.
So it's like Buddhism gives us these tools to deal with life's ups and downs with more grace and calmness. And it seems like those tools are resonating with people all over the place. All right, on to number 3, Hinduism. I'll be honest, this one's always felt a little intimidating, like trying to grasp the entire universe in one sitting.
I can see why you'd say that. Hinduism is incredibly diverse. It's more helpful to think of it as a tapestry of beliefs rather than a single unified religion. But that's part of what makes it so intriguing.
Okay, so where do you even begin with a faith that has so many gods, so many schools of thought, so many different ways of practicing?
Well, a good place to start is with the concept of Brahman. It's like the ultimate reality, the divine essence that's everywhere and in everything. Think of it like the canvas that all of Hinduism is painted on.
I think I can get on board with that. So if Brahman is the canvas, what about all the gods and goddesses we usually picture with Hinduism?
Those are all deities, manifestations of Brahman. Each one represents a different facet of the divine, like Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer.
Those are the big 3, right?
Yep, known as the Trimurti. They represent this constant cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction that governs the universe.
It's like this cosmic dance with all these powerful forces always interacting and shaping reality as we know it.
It's a beautiful way to look at it. And then you've got all these other deities, each with their own stories and characteristics. It's a lot to keep track of, but that's the thing about Hinduism. It's a living, breathing tradition, constantly evolving and adapting to different cultures and times.
So it's less about memorizing a strict set of rules and more about finding your own path within this vast and colorful world of spirituality.
Exactly. And that path often involves rituals, festivals, and pilgrimages. Have you ever seen pictures of Holia, the festival of colors?
Oh yeah, where everyone's throwing colored powder at each other. It looks like a blast.
It's all about celebrating the victory of good over evil, welcoming new beginnings, and tapping into that playful divine energy. It shows how Hinduism blends spirituality with everyday life.
It reminds us that faith doesn't always have to be so serious. It can be joyous and vibrant. Okay, we're getting close to the top. Now, at number 2, we have Islam, a faith that's often misunderstood, but at its core is all about peace and submission to God.
You got it. The word Islam itself actually means submission or peace. It's about surrendering to the will of God, or Allah. And at the heart of Islam is the belief in one God and the Prophet Muhammad as his messenger.
And Muhammad's teachings are all recorded in the Quran, which is like the holy book in Islam.
Exactly. Muslims believe the Quran is the literal word of God. It guides every aspect of their lives. And those guidelines are laid out in the 5 pillars of Islam, which are like the foundational practices of the faith.
Right, the 5 pillars. Those are the non-negotiables, the things that every Muslim, no matter where they're from or their background, strives to uphold.
You got it. They're like the framework for living a life devoted to God, filled with compassion and service. So let's break them down.
Hit me with it. What's pillar number 1?
First up, you've got the Shahada. It's the declaration of faith. A simple but super important statement that goes something like, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger.
So it's about declaring the oneness of God and recognizing Muhammad as the final prophet.
Exactly. It's the bedrock of the faith. And speaking of pillars, the second one is prayer or salat.
And Muslims pray 5 times a day, right? I've always been impressed by the discipline of that.
It's a powerful practice that keeps them connected to God throughout the day. They face Mecca, the holiest city in Islam, and do a series of postures and recitations that cultivate this feeling of humility, gratitude, and connection with the divine.
It's like a rhythm, a constant presence of their faith, even when life gets hectic.
Absolutely. And the third pillar is fasting during Ramadan.
Ramadan, a whole month of spiritual reflection, self-discipline, and empathy for those who are less fortunate. It's a pretty powerful concept.
It really is. It's about abstaining from food and drink from sunrise to sunset, which is about more than just physical and spiritual cleansing. It reminds Muslims of the importance of gratitude, generosity, and compassion for those who are struggling.
And it all leads up to Eid al-Fitr, right?
You know it. That's the big celebration that marks the end of Ramadan.
Families get together, have feasts, exchange gifts, give thanks for all the good things in their lives.
That's what it's all about. Okay, pillar number 4 is zakat, almsgiving.
So giving to those in need, it's about recognizing that everything we have is a gift from God.
And putting that recognition into action,
Right.
It's about social responsibility, building a fairer, more balanced society.
I like it. And finally, the 5th pillar.
The Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca.
Ah, yes, the Hajj. One of the largest gatherings of people on the planet. Millions of Muslims from every corner of the globe all coming together in Mecca.
It's a powerful image of unity and equality. During the Hajj, everyone, no matter their race, ethnicity, or social standing, they all wear these simple white garments. It symbolizes that in the eyes of God, we are all equal.
Such a powerful message, especially in a world that can feel so divided. Okay, that brings us to the religion, with the biggest global following, Christianity. It's had a massive influence on human history, shaping art, culture, politics, or countless lives for over 2,000 years.
It's mind-boggling when you really think about it. A faith that started with a handful of followers in a tiny corner of the Roman Empire, eventually becoming this global religion with over 2 billion followers.
It shows you the power of a message. And in this case, a message centered on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth.
For Christians, Jesus is the Son of God, the Messiah, who came to earth to offer us salvation and eternal life.
And his teachings on love, forgiveness, and compassion, those ideas have resonated with people across time and cultures.
They have. And those teachings are at the heart of the Bible, Christianity's sacred text. It's split into 2 parts. The Old Testament, which has a lot of overlap with the Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament, which focuses on Jesus and his teachings.
And the Bible's been translated to so many languages that it's one of the most widely read books ever.
It's true. And within Christianity, there are tons of different denominations, each with their own way of interpreting the Bible and its teachings.
Right, you've got Catholicism and Protestantism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and countless other branches. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of faith.
Definitely not. But even with those differences, Christians all share this fundamental belief in the divinity of Jesus, the power of love and forgiveness, and the hope for salvation and eternal life.
It's a faith that's constantly changing, adapting to new cultures and challenges, all while holding on to those core beliefs that have kept it going for centuries. It really makes you think about how much religion shapes our world.
It does when you look at it from that perspective.
We've covered faiths with billions of followers and some with just a few million ancient traditions, ones that are relatively new.
And yet, even with all that variety, we see these common threads.
Right, like this idea that there's something bigger than us, whether it's God or gods or some kind of universal energy.
It's this profound search for meaning, for purpose, for a connection to something that transcends the everyday. It seems to be a fundamental part of what it means to be human.
It really does make you wonder if it's just part of our DNA, this need to believe in something beyond ourselves.
It's a question that's been debated for centuries. Are we hardwired to seek out the transcendent, to find comfort in something larger than ourselves?
Maybe it's about figuring out where we fit into the grand scheme of things.
Or making sense of the chaos and uncertainty of life?
Or maybe it's about that deep human longing for connection. to each other, to something bigger than ourselves, to that mystery that's at the heart of it all.
It's a beautiful thought. And whatever the reason, religion continues to have this powerful impact on the world around us.
It's a source of hope, comfort, community for billions of people.
It inspires art, music, architecture, literature.
And it often sits right at the center of some of the biggest issues we face today. Social justice, the environment, global conflict.
It's everywhere. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world's biggest religions, I'm struck by the sheer diversity of human belief.
I'm with you on that one.
And I have this newfound appreciation for how much power faith has to inspire challenge and bring people together. And sometimes, unfortunately, even tear them apart.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, that's for sure. But I think that's part of what makes it all so fascinating. There's always more to learn, more to explore, more to understand about ourselves and the world around us, especially when we look at it through this lens of faith.
Well said. And who knows, maybe something we've talked about today will spark a new question for our listeners. Maybe it'll send them down a whole new path of discovery.
That's what we hope for, because at the end of the day, the journey of understanding never really ends.
It really doesn't. It's an ongoing process of discovery, reflection, and growth.
And the best part is, we're all in it together.
That's right. So to everyone listening out there, thank you for coming along with us on this incredible journey. Keep those minds open, those hearts curious, and keep those questions coming. Until next time, keep on exploring.